Do you think UFOs, the paranormal, weird history, cryptozoology, and outsider art are pretty darn cool? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to High Strangeness with your host, Steve Berg.
The video version. Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of High Strangeness. Tonight, it's 5 o'clock, Charles. What is it, night or day?
It's night for me.
Yeah, I feel like once it's dinner time, it becomes night. But anyways, folks, my guest this evening, or afternoon, whatever you want to call it, is Charles Lear. And I'm going to read you a little bio about Charles Lear. So, Charles has been writing about flying saucers and UFOs for several years and still finds the subject and the stories of the people involved fascinating. Besides his interest in all things Fortean, his pursuits include paleontology, geology, hiking, bad movies, and mid-20th century electronic music. He has been a theater person for most of his life. As a performer, he sticks to Shakespeare, and he makes his living as an IATSE, Local 1 welder and carpenter in the construction shop of the Metropolitan Opera. This is the second edition of Flying Saucer Investigators, and he has got another saucer/UFO related book available entitled Crash Saucers and Malevolent Aliens. Charles, welcome to the show, pal.
Pleasure to be here, Steve. Thank you.
Before we, dive deep into the world of ufology, I would like to pick apart some of the things in the bio. First off, you are a fellow thespian. Well.
Yes, I am.
Well, how long have you been an actor?
Oh, since childhood.
Yeah, it starts for us young, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was in my first resident theater company at age 19.
Oh, wow.
Hedgerow Theater in Pennsylvania.
Very cool.
Yeah, they had a farmhouse and theater in an old gristmill down the hill. You lived there, you got room and board and $40 a week.
God, I love that.
Then I moved to New York and then moved back in my 30s and with my wife, and we both got a whopping $40 a week room and board. And we actually spent 4 years there.
Wow.
And now I make a living as and you said IATSE right. Most people say IATSE.
Hey, I'm a union man too,
Yes,
sir.
are,
I'm
right
a union
on.
man.
So I make my living as a stagehand, but I'm still I'm actually hooked up with a company called Stag and Lion, and I only do Shakespeare nowadays.
I only do Shakespeare, he says. Folks, I mean, I have never done Shakespeare simply because it's too hard.
I think it's easy. That's why I
well,
like it.
It's funny is yeah, certainly. But when I was studying acting in college and early in LA, it was Shakespeare actors, and then there was the goofball improv sketch people like me, and we were always so intimidated by the Shakespeare people. They can remember so many monologues. Oh my God. But yeah, do you find the language because I know a lot of actors with Shakespeare, they really feel like once you get a grasp of the language, it flows and it's actually easier than anything else. So
Yeah,
you're not the
very
first
much
person
so.
I've heard that from.
Very much so. Actually, I wrote a book, Post-Apocalyptic Macbeth and the Girls. It's kind of wild. I put out a second edition of that as well.
Awesome.
And if you go to Amazon and just type in Charles Lear in the search, all the books will come up. But that one's about producing Macbeth on a rooftop in East Williamsburg Industrial Park, which was still a new illegal loft area. And so it's a combination history, bohemian lifestyle, and me and my wife and adopted wife producing Macbeth on a rooftop in East Williamsburg. So I had a lot of ins and outs about Shakespeare, how it works, how what the production process is like, and a lot of the wacky things we went along the way. As turned out, King Duncan liked to drink in the afternoon, and we started calling him King Drunken. And we were having issues with him, and then finally opening, he was losing his lines, but when he was good, he was awesome. And so opening day, I said, "Are you going to be all right?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm going to be good today. Everything's going to be fine." Then I noticed the little telltale white powder on his nose.
Yeah, look,
Here we go.
yeah, look, I've known people who perform on drugs and booze very well, and I was never one of those people where like I could have a beer before like a comedy show, but like that's about it. Like it takes all my brain power to like do a serviceable job.
Yeah,
I'm not that gifted.
Right on. No, it's
Well,
good anyway, we should probably talk about saucers.
well, we're gonna get into that. No, we're definitely
Okay.
gonna get into saucers. But I like also what popped out at me is that you have this love for bad movies. I do too.
Oh, yeah, I'd like. Birdemic is a big favorite of mine. Of course, I'm a fan of all of Ed Wood's movies,
Yes.
and there are. I love the old cheesy space movies. Biography. Who's the guy who did Biography? Peter Graves. Peter Graves is in it. I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I really like bad movies because they're real. You
Yeah.
see them as a movie,
Yes.
and you're not caught up into the suspension of disbelief and carried along the ride. You kind of can kick back, and it's like you're looking at behind the screens at reality, which is a weird way to put it. Not to mention they're just funny and entertaining,
Right.
and it's best with a bunch of people too. I've found.
I agree. They're fun group watches because you don't necessarily have to follow the plot. But I will say, and I mean this sincerely, like I think they're one thing with modern cinema and even TV shows. Like there are so many great movies still coming out and TV shows, obviously. But one thing is the acting style and even like the look and the feel. It's so hyper real. Like they're always. It seems like everyone's really leaning into realism, and like I kind of hope that eventually, like the acting style goes back to more like the '50s, where it's so overly performative. But you got these, like, and there was a cheesy quality to it. But you're watching like this production, even like a low budget one. Like, there's something about like the guardrails of a low budget that makes things interesting. Sometimes.
Right on. Yes, definitely.
You know what I mean? Well, tell me this. How did you get into this wonderful, wild world of UFOs? Like, is this a lifelong thing for you?
I grew up in the 70s. How could I not?
Mm-hmm.
Everything just In Search of was on, and the 70s, the mainstream was embracing alternative ways of thinking. So, flying saucers along with pyramid mysteries, along with strange lines and Giza, and is that right? The Giza lines?
The Nazca. Well, there's the
Nazca
Nazca
lines.
lines. Yeah, in Peru. Yeah.
Nazca lines. Yes, excuse me.
No.
And yeah, all that kind of wacky stuff. Atlantis and Edgar Casey and all that
Yeah.
crazy stuff. So that was all the 70s, and UFOs came along with it. And I interested in all of it, but had a particular fascination with the flying saucers. And what's funny is I called them flying saucers growing up and for most of my time. And the first thing when the internet came along that I was looking forward to, the first three-letter word I typed in was UFO, not SEX.
Yeah.
So, what's that say about me? I don't
Yeah.
know. There's something wrong.
Well, that's amazing. So the 70s, and I honestly like I want to ask this question later. Don't tell me your answer, but like the 70s is my favorite decade for UFOs and 40 and stuff. Period. It was the 60s, 70s were everything. It was the varieties were endless, and it was just so deeply weird.
That's
And that's what I love about it.
right on. Yeah, I'm writing UFO Investigators right now, and I'm in the 70s. And I'm just gonna go up until Bill Moore's speech at the 1989 MUFON symposium. I caught all the stupidness of the 80s and crashed saucers and malevolent
Yeah.
aliens to get that out of the way. So I'm
Yeah.
focusing on the real cases, the real investigators, and the cooler non-commercial side of ufology back in the days. But the 70s, unbelievable. It's case after case after case after case. I'm like doing the Zanfretta case now, which is oh my God.
It's amazing. A great Italian case, yeah.
10 feet reptilian aliens with triangular yellow eyes. And
Yes, please.
the guy kept getting abducted over and over again, and hypnotically regressed every single time.
It's
On television twice. But the most awesome thing is the corroborating evidence and all his security. He worked for a private security firm called Valbizzano.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think that means Institute of Vigilance, which is pretty awesome.
Perfect.
But he kept going. He'd call in saying something was taking control of his car, and I'm driving into a fog. It's driving into a fog, and then it suddenly stops. He bangs his head on the steering wheel, and he calls in, "I'm getting out of the car now. I see a light. I'm going towards it," kind of thing. And then the guards, his team goes out looking for him, and they find him next to the car outside in the freezing cold. This is in the mountains of Italy around Tariglia. And weirdest thing, it's cold, but he's warm. His clothes are warm, his head is hot, and the inside of the car. And not only that, the Carabinieri, the Italian military police, which is the police in Italy, they got called in as well, and they did a report, and in the report says they found that the inside of the car was as hot as an oven, and the outside of the car felt like it'd been out in the sun all day, and it's a cold winter's day. Amazing. So you've got this weird corroborating evidence on top of this guy's crazy contactee story about meeting the Prince of the Dargos, and the Dargos were the big creatures, and the Prince of the Dargos told him that their planet was doomed, that they wanted to come to Earth and build a dome city here. And he said they gave him a sphere with a triangle inside that would, be their means of contact, everything from a means of contact to a homing beacon to possibly something that would cause a great cataclysm on Earth if you press the wrong buttons.
Don't cut the green wire.
Yeah, so but it's the case got you could probably say it was fouled up by all the hypnotic regression sessions.
There we go. Yeah,
and leading questions and all that kind of stuff. Like at one point, he said he was told to give the sphere to American professors whose name sounded like Hanky, and the guy regressing him says, "You mean Heineck?" Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah. So that was a leading question right there. And Heineck's only involvement with the case was actually meeting the guy who wrote about this was an Italian journalist named Rino Di Stefano, who was working for a paper called Corriere Mercantile, and he wrote an article for his paper and then stuck with the case and then wrote a big book about it called the Zanfretta case, and it's 2014 English edition. The first edition was in 1984. But so he meets Heineck at I think a UFO convention and says, "Hi, I've got this guy Piero Fortunato Zanfretta. He has a spear for you."
He actually gave us a spear.
No, he did. Oh. He didn't. Later, Zanfretta claimed he buried it in the mountains and wasn't going to show it to anybody until the time was right, or maybe never. But as far as we know, it's still buried. Incredible. And Heineck, says, "Well, I don't know what to think about it, but it's an interesting case, and I think that's the extent of his involvement with it."
Yeah, but, well, it's one of those cases.
I'm sorry. One more thing.
Please,
really
please.
Super cool. The car he drove most, patrol car he drove most, was a Fiat 124, and unbeknownst to him, a couple of engineers, part of the company engineers, rigged up his car. They put a thermometer in there that would record the highest temperature. They hit it. They put a bunch of cassette tapes and reel-to-reel tapes in there to see if they picked up any weird magnetic fields. They put in, but the coolest thing is it seemed that he kept claiming his car was being lifted up into a ship. So they rigged up cables to his wheel hubs, to the body, and they tested it. They lifted it up, and sure enough, when you lift the car, the cables would snap. And that's the only way to make them snap. And sure enough, he goes missing. They come find him, and they check the car. The highest temperature was, I think, 109.4 degrees Fahrenheit.
Whoa.
And the cables were all snapped. So that's the weirdest thing about this case is you've got this corroborating evidence. You've got Italian military police involvement. You've got a private security company that he's working for that has to rescue him over and over and over again. And then you get this wacky contactee story that comes out of the hypnosis sessions.
It's got everything you want in a UFO case. Deep high strangeness, corroborating evidence. I didn't realize there was actually so much evidence. I mean, it sounds like something happened to this man. Now, whether he was like, an experiment, like a psyop experiment, or like, but it sounds like something. There was physical evidence, so it sounds like, something went down. Unless he, obviously, you could have maybe hoaxed it. It'd be tough, but
it didn't do him any good. I think
No.
he's another guy who lost his whole family. You can see him age like in 10 years. In the course of a year, his hair all went gray. He gained, like 30 pounds. And another weird physical effect is urine turned black after each occasion. And I've seen this show up in case. I write for Martin Willis at Podcast UFO, so I write, at least one case every week, generally, or, occasionally I get stuck in a 3-part series like the one I did on Zamfretta. And I've seen that come up over and over again. Black urine, it's a weird physical effect. It's like the same thing with eye burn, cleid conjunctivitis.
Yeah.
Welder's burn, that's another physical symptom. But yeah, black urine's a thing.
Whoa. I don't think I've ever heard that. I kind of feel like in one of Keel's books, maybe he mentioned it in like Eighth Tower or something. But that is a really interesting detail. And not one I would want to experience, Charles, to be honest.
Yep, I hear you.
I'm going to ask a dumb question, if you don't mind. But one of my favorite, and when I say favorite, it's not because I think he was like a great ufologist, but he was such a character. I call him of the cowboy 80s ufologist. But John Lear, I don't suppose you're related to John Lear, the same spelling.
Get that all the time. I'm distantly related. I understand from my family, mainly talking about Bill Lear, his father, who invented the Learjet and the 8-track tape. But that's the extent of it, and not closely enough to have gotten any money from it.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
But yeah, John Lear is quite a character.
He's such a character. Like, and folks, listeners, if you don't know who John Lear is, he was this guy. He was like a former, legitimately broke a bunch of flight records. He was like a hot shot pilot. He flew for Air America, CIA, and stuff like that. But then in the mid '80s, he comes around. And he was heavily involved in the whole Area 51 mythos with George Knapp and, Bob Lazar and those guys. But he was this guy who was part trickster, part UFO paranoia. He's kind of the guys you think of when you think of somebody getting caught up in UFO paranoia. I always think of John Lear a little bit.
Yeah, well, I wrote about him in Crashed Saucers.
Mm-hmm.
And, basically, he was hanging around with Paul Benowitz.
Yeah.
Who was the target of Richard Doty's disinfo op.
Yep. And
that sucked up Bill Moore and Linda Moulton Howe. But and then what happened with Lear, Benowitz got involved in an abduction case that sent him over the rails, and he started getting really paranoid and pretty crazy. And Leo Sprinkle, one of the pioneers of hypnotic regression technique in abduction cases, came over to do a session with the woman's name was Myra Hansen. And by the time he got to, this is outside in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where Benowitz had his home. And at this point, Benowitz and the woman were convinced she was implanted and that the aliens were able to read her thoughts. So they wanted Sprinkle to regress her and do a session in Benowitz's Lincoln that they wrapped in aluminum foil to block out the alien rays.
I love this stuff, though, man.
And yeah, Benowitz got really, really crazy. He wrote this screed called Project Beta, which is all in caps. It has this manic urgency, and it's all this warning to everybody. He sent it to everybody, senators, because he was a military contractor, so he actually had access to these people. The president and everybody in UFO world got this screed, and it's just about this alien takeover, what we can do to stop it. And I've built a beam weapon. So he went pretty nuts. But Lear took off from this and wrote his own screed that's really similar to all this, but he posted it on Paranet, which was brand new. This is just before the internet. It's on a Usenet.
What is like a Usenet? So I've always heard of Paranet, but like I don't even understand how you would post something without the internet.
It's a bulletin board system. You've got your phone lines, and everybody's got numbers they can call. Dial it up. You put your phone on the modem, and so these computers are all linked up through the software is called FidoNet, and so it's basically using the phone lines, and you've got your own network of computers to talk to each other. So they would start bulletin boards services on these, and Paranet was like the first paranormal one, started by a guy named Jim Spicer.
Oh, okay, I know that name.
Yeah. So Spicer gets his thing from Lear, and with Lear's pedigree, like you said, I think he had 104. Flew 104 different planes, had multiple airspeed records, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Legit, he was amazing.
So he gets this crazy letter from this guy with this pedigree, and Lear catapulted him to fame, and and also Bill Cooper. Hooked up with him and said, I can back him up. I've seen some of the things that Lear has said, and so they started, going back and forth on the Paranet, and Cooper basically hooked his star to Lear's wagon, and they both rose to prominence, became like, superstars almost overnight. Lear ended up becoming the head of the Nevada chapter of MUFON within the year, I think. And eventually what happened is that they started going so over the top. They upset Jim Spicer and a lot of other users, and they both got booted. But Lear was just my take on Lear, because he just, if you watch interviews with him, he comes out with the most outrageous statements, like the Stargates.
Oh yeah, the aliens are sending our souls to the moon to be caught in the moon, then to be used for food. I mean, like, he was. I followed him, but I always read him for comedy, not necessarily for like factual stuff.
So my take on him is that he kind of felt there was this is just my how he comes off to me. It's like this guy feels there's this unspoken rule that we're all making this up. And and he literally did make up a thing called the H. Krill papers, along with a buddy of his, and admitted to it, and called Bill Cooper out on it, because Bill Cooper talked about seeing the H. Krill documents while they were both being interviewed. And afterwards, and Lear talks about saying, and I took him aside and I said, hey, Bill, we made these up. So, just a crazy guy.
And that was kind of fascinating too, because that was kind of the period where William Cooper, who rose fast to like UFO popularity in the conference circuit, like really fast. And after that, he kind of abandoned the UFO narrative, said it's all fake, it's all a government psyop. And then I had this like theory that he was using UFOs to really put out his like patriot movement, because he was like an early patriot movement militia, anti-government nutball. I mean, he was insane. Like,
Hour of the Time. If you listen to his radio show,
and crazy.
It wasn't a radio show. It was shortwave radio.
Yeah.
I kind of, back in the early internet days when I'm discovering all these people, what's really weird is, I came up. I was a punk rocker for most of my life, and our ideologies kind of, but anyway, the ideology of myself and probably most of my peers was we would kind of run into the right-wing ideologies. A lot of times they would mesh up, because total, this was a Reagan era. Reagan was and Reagan and government, just they're all lying and blah, 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 blah. It's conspiracy this, conspiracy that.
Yeah.
And the right-wing extremists, their ideas meshed with ours.
Yeah.
And so I just, discovering all the conspiracy stuff, I discovered Cooper. And what impressed me was, because the guy's really erudite.
Yeah.
And would, like, one thing he did I'm trying to think of the other. There's another guy who he was an internet sensation, and
Bill English.
Not Bill English. He's not a UFO guy. He's definitely it's a conspiracy guy.
Okay.
Was big on the place with the owl.
Oh, Bohemian Grove.
He was big on the Bohemian Grove thing.
Jordan Maxwell.
Not him, but
okay.
But anyway, it's all good. But essentially, what he did is he would like name certain bills and certain laws and have the numbers and letters like all at his fingertips. And when I first was watching it, I was, wow, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. And then I'd follow it, and then all of a sudden he'd take this right turn, and you're like, whoa, what did he just say?
Yeah.
This kind of sounds like the Elders of Zion kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's so problematic. I mean, like that. Yeah, it's like I've never been like, I know about conspiracy culture through UFOs, honestly, because like when you read about UFOs and, especially in the early days of the internet, are looking up UFO information, it just, you can't help but have to sift through like a lot of conspiracy nonsense.
Well, like I said, this was all new. Like in the early, when when internet was still in the hands of computer nerds,
Mm-hmm.
and it's getting all this information really fast and getting like, feel like there was a big site, Everything You Know Is Wrong, and a series of books out, and it was like, oh wow, changing my world. I had no idea. And then you start being able to get into rational thought and pick through this stuff and say, oh, wait a minute, because a lot of the stuff they say, there's something to it, and then all of a sudden they'll go down this hole, and you're just like, wait a minute, where that, like David Icke. Oh my God. And he's the guy. For those of you who don't know, this is where the lizard man, the lizard people really got big.
He's a problematic man.
Yeah, he was a soccer star, and on national television, he claimed to be the son of God.
Yeah,
if not Jesus Christ himself.
One of those guys.
But then he went on the lecture circuit, and you start listening to him. If you ever watch a David Icke video, you watch, he does the whole banking conspiracy thing and the kind of along the Rothschild kind of thing, and you're following him along. Seems to be something to this. Lizard people.
Yeah.
Queen Elizabeth is a lizard person?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. No, I mean he's utter nonsense, man. And he's a straight up racist as far as I'm concerned. Like, like he's kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah, yeah.
I know there's still some people like who take him seriously, but I cannot. I mean, like, good God, this guy. Well, I want to ask you this, like, because this new book, which thank you so much for saying to me, and like, but you have written prolifically about UFO personalities, the people behind who study UFOs, who dedicate a lot of their life to UFOs. Like you, I am very fascinated by the personalities behind UFO studies. But what really is it about the personalities and the people that fascinates you so much? I love that what you're doing, by the way, because I feel like it is documenting history in a different way, as opposed to like talking about the cases, talking about like, I mean, you do talk about cases, of course, but like you were really putting the personalities front and center, and that seems to be important to you. And for people like me, I'm like, thank you. This is really great history.
That's where all this stuff comes from, and the flying saucer investigators, that period from 47 up until the close of Blue Book 69, it was like a pretty tight subculture. And I start off talking about Ray Palmer and Richard Shaver, and Ray Palmer was part of a subculture just before it, which was a science fiction subculture, which had a lot of similarities, and they had the first fanzines were from the science fiction people, and I think Palmer actually started the first club, and so it was this community, and it was tight knit, and the flying saucer community was very similar, and they were earnest, and they really thought that the answer, we're going to find the answer, and it was non-commercial. That's the best part of it,
right?
So like I said, I hung out in the punk scene, and it's the same kind of thing, like especially in the 80s. I mean, we were ignored. We didn't exist, and that was cool. The only time we made the papers was like when my bass player Ned, hello Ned, ended up on the cover of the New York Post with a billy club around his neck in the Tompkins Square Park riots.
Oh my God!
But other than that, we totally ignored by the media, and the flying saucer community was very much similar, and nobody, any books they put out, they weren't making much money, and it wasn't UFOtainment back then. So it's a magical period.
Yeah.
And on besides looking at the personalities are great, especially when you get the people like Jim Moseley and Ray Barker.
Love Jim Moseley.
How can you?
Those are they're the two cool. That's the coolest UFO duo, I think.
Yeah. And then you throw John Keel into the mix.
Hell yes.
And them messing around with John Keel, which I cover in the book, which shows up in the Mothman prophecies. And Keel, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Never.
I love Keel, but he was a writer first and foremost. So with them, they were messing around with him, like Ray Barker. Awesome thing Ray Barker did is he called up and said, "Mr. Keel, hi, this is I think he said Mr. Barker or something like that, but in his weird voice, and Keel said, "Gray," and it's like, "Yes, Mr. Keel," and he's talking, and I think you should investigate this case in Pennsylvania, Mr. Keel. And he's calling him Mr. Keel the whole time, using this weird voice and acting like he doesn't really know him, and then hangs up. And Keel, actually, you can go to johnkeel.com. I forget the name of the guy who runs that.
Doug Skinner?
Doug Skinner, yes.
Yeah.
So Doug Skinner, who has a lot of Keel's archives, was a buddy of Keel's. And so he has all this stuff up there, and he has the Keel's notes on this phone call, and it's just like, what the hell? So, and it's Barker's really bizarre sense of humor. And
Yeah.
I think Barker liked his weed and definitely liked to drink,
Yeah.
and as did Jim Moseley.
Yeah.
But in any case, it shows up in the book where Keel's getting really paranoid and thinking, that this whole Men in Black thing is going around.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is Moseley and Barker just messing with him.
Yeah. They literally hired a guy to dress as a Man in Black at a Fortean conference in New York, like back in the 60s.
I think I kind of heard that story. I don't have the details of it.
And it was to mess with everyone, but it was mostly to mess with Keel because he was going through his like uber paranoid phase of the Men in Black, and I love that.
It's shocking
stuff.
that Keel came out the other side of that too.
It seems like
you read the Mothman prophecies. He was in pretty deep.
Yeah, he was,
and he could have been messed. A lot of people would have been seriously messed up. I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is one of those guys where his ending wasn't so great, though. I mean, the movie came out, but I think he was kind of from people I know who knew him and spent time with him towards the end. Like, I think he was pretty broke, pretty sick, and pretty alone.
The diabetes, I think, it was messing him up. That's what I heard. Yeah.
But I love him. I mean, honestly, I love Valet so much, but Keel is the most fun. Author in Forteana to me, it's just great audiobooks to listen to on a road trip. Just endless stories that are fantastic.
Yeah.
If you want to, do you want to give people just a little thumbnail about what the book is, and then we'll pick apart a couple cases. I don't want to do a spoiler, so people, I want people to read the book, but but do you want to give people just the elevator pitch of what it is?
The introduction pretty much covers it.
Great. Do you want to read a passage?
Absolutely. The flying saucer mystery was brand new in the late 1940s and early 1950s. It was a mystery that many thought could be solved, and many earnestly endeavored to do just that. While the U.S. Air Force was able to investigate using public funds, private citizens who looked into the mystery usually did it on their own time with their own money. However, flying saucers also sold books, magazines, and newspapers, so some lucky few were able to venture forth with a promise of payment from an editor or publisher who may or may not have been more devoted to truth than sales. A twisted written history developed on the pages of commercial and private publications as well as those found in official government files. It's twisted because of the conflicts between profit and integrity, belief and skepticism, and in the case of the government, the public's right to know and the need for national security. This book is about the people who were responsible for the written record of the flying saucer investigation. Whether or not one believes in flying saucers shouldn't interfere with the reader's enjoyment. Even if flying saucers weren't real, the people were, and they cover a wide range of human personalities, from serious and science-minded individuals to libertine mischief makers. Using the written words of the investigators as well as video and audio recordings as a guide, this book will explore their investigations, their interactions with each other, and their interactions with a mostly skeptical world. The period covered will be from 1947 until 1970, marked by the coining of the phrase flying saucer and the termination of the Air Force's investigation of the mystery, run for most of its years under the designation Project Blue Book.
So, wonderful. That is, folks, it's this is such a great book. It really is a great book to read if you because to me, the 20th century was a far more interesting time for UFOs, and that's just my personal bias. But this is a really good deep dive, and it picks apart the people so well, and I feel like most books kind of miss that. But if you don't mind, I just would love to talk about a couple of the chapters he wrote. Without giving too much away, because I want people to read this, of course.
Okay.
Right? But right off the bat, you cover, Kenneth Arnold. But it's more focused on his investigator stint. Because we all know Kenneth Arnold from the 1945 sighting where he sees these, it's kind of, it's really what starts the UFO saucer craze in the 40s. But I think a lot of people don't know that the most interesting part to me about Kenneth Arnold is his investigation. Very short-lived investigating stint. Will you mind talking about that a little bit?
not at all. It's why we know about Maury Island.
Absolutely.
Because of Ray Palmer. Ray Palmer is the guy who started Fate magazine, which still exists today, which is
Wonderful.
absolutely amazing. He started that in 1947. And Kenneth Arnold's sighting over Mount Rainier was his very first article. He actually got Arnold to write an article for him about that. In the meantime, a couple of guys up in Maury Island mailed Palmer and said, "Hey, we have this strange debris. We're not sure what it's from. You might be interested in it, And he goes, "Well, if you tell me it's from a flying saucer, I'll be interested." Yeah. It's from a flying saucer. Yeah, you should check it out. So they sent him some of the debris, and Palmer knows that Arnold lived in Idaho, right down the street from Washington.
Yeah, hop, skip, and a jump.
but Arnold had his own plane. He was a private pilot, and he flew on business. I think he sold firefighting equipment, and so Palmer said, "Look, if you'll go up and investigate for me, talk to these guys, and may help, add some corroboration to your own story. I'll give you $200." And Arnold actually asked a friend of his if it was ethical. The friend said, "Yeah, take the money, go.
Yeah.
Have fun."
Get a vacation.
Off Arnold goes. So what's really cool about this story, the two guys that he ended up, the first guy he met was Harold Dahl, big lummox of a guy, and he worked with this guy named Fred Chrisman.
Mm-hmm.
They claimed if from them, they were on harbor patrol. What they were really doing was salvaging runaway logs from logging operations, and they would sell them to people, and they'd make deals downtown in cafes. So the story Dahl pitched was that while he was out on harbor patrol with his crew, his son and his dog, he saw these 6 donut-shaped flying objects, one of which seemed to be having trouble. The others crowded around it. It dumped its load, steaming, I think one dark, one light, and part of the debris damaged the ship, broke his son's arm, killed the dog. He and the crew all sheltered on the island, and that was the story. And he actually took him to his house to show him a piece of the debris, and Arnold actually, I think both, Arnold wrote that he said, "Why, Harold, that's just a piece of lava rock," which gives you kind of a little insight. Well, the other guy involved was Fred Chrisman, the guy who said he was the owner of the boat and running the company. And Chrisman said, he had more debris, and Dahl was super reluctant the entire time Arnold mentions this, and says, "Nothing but trouble can come out of this, sir. You should just go back home to Idaho. Forget this ever happened. I've had all these misfortunes and blah, 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 blah." But Arnold, stuck with him and managed to meet Fred Chrisman. Fred Chrisman is a character.
Oh, he is.
Fred Chrisman actually first showed up when Palmer was running editor of Amazing Stories. He hooked up with this guy. He got a weird letter about this mysterious alphabet called Mantong, where if you take all the letters of the Roman alphabet, they have their individual meanings. So if you take any sentence and you put take each letter and meaning, you get a whole nother sentence. Some real arcane knowledge might come out of this. And one of Palmer's sub-editors, Harold Brown, fished this out of a garbage can and was reading it aloud, laughing about it, and he put it back in. And legend goes that Palmer pulled it out of the trash can and said, "You call yourself an editor? Publish this immediately." And so they did, and sure enough, it hit with readers, and they got all these letters back saying, "We tried it, it works." And then Shaver wrote another sprawling 20,000 word letter talking about this basically, the Shaver was more than likely a paranoid schizophrenic. So
Yeah.
this story is super convoluted, but distilling it, there was this race of creatures on Earth. The sun went crazy, poisoned everybody. A bunch of them escaped to space, and a bunch of people left behind went underground. And this was a race before the human beings. Underground, you have good creatures and bad creatures. The good ones are called the Taros, and the bad ones are called the Daros. RO means robot, and in Shaver's mind, these are people controlled by rays. And the Daros, the bad ones, controlled us up on Earth with their own cosmic rays and caused all kinds of mayhem. And so the original letter really didn't have protagonists or anything a good story should. So Palmer edited it, gave it all that stuff, turned it into a space opera, and it was a huge hit. And every issue of Amazing Stories from then until Palmer's departure had Richard Shaver stories in them.
Yep.
Sometimes an entire issue, I think at least one issue was entirely devoted to Shaver. And it was huge. This was presaged the flying saucer craze. And there were people actually going down in the caves saying, on Darrow expeditions. And there's a famous issue, somebody, I pressed the wrong button on an elevator. I ended up in a Darrow cave. Yes. One writer, Mr. Fred Chrisman, wrote a letter saying he was fighting in the caves in Burma, and they came upon a Darrow stronghold, and his buddy got a dime-sized hole in his hand after they got a machine gun battle with him. So this is Fred Chrisman early on with Palmer. So there's Fred Chrisman again with the Maury Island incident, and things are getting a little nutty. And Arnold feels like he's a little in over his head. He calls his buddy E.J. Smith, also known as Big Smithy, who had been in the news because he and his crew had seen UFOs. And Arnold thought, hey, you want to help corroborate your story?
Yeah.
Why don't you come help me out? So he did. And he stuck with it, and he canceled some flights and stuck with Arnold for the investigation. And so they grilled Chrisman and Dahl. And what happened is somebody from a local paper called and said, hey, this guy is telling me all about your conversations in the hotel room, giving me all the details. And they started, somebody bugged the room. What's going on? Could it be Chrisman and Dahl? And at one point, he gets a call while they're in the room. So they're thinking, oh, maybe it's not him. So they're getting really paranoid, and something's going down. Well, two guys that I think William Davidson and Harold Brown are their names, were early a predecessor to AFOSI, Air Force Office of Special Investigations. They were Army Air Force's special investigators, and they had talked to Arnold after his sighting, and famously showed him a picture of something that looked like one of the crescent-shaped things he saw.
Right. And
they told him, you ever need our help, give us a call. So he did. And they came out to Maury Island. And so they weren't impressed. And on their way out, Chrisman said, well, let me give you some of the debris. And I said, yeah. We got a car. They had to fly back. And Arnold and Smithy tried to talk them out of it. But they said, no, we got to get back because it's Air Force's day. The Army Air Forces had just become the Air Force,
right,
as we know it today, and they were celebrating it, and they had to get back. And it's the middle of the night, and they're getting into their car, just about to leave. Chrisman rolls up with a cornflakes box full of flying saucer debris and says, here you go, take this. And they take it on the plane, and the plane goes down. And Davidson and Brown evacuated everybody, but they ended up going down with the ship. And the local paper got a call from somebody saying, with the names of Davidson and Brown, which hadn't been released by the Army Air Forces. So the paper thought there was really something to the story, and the story was that the plane had gone down and these guys were carrying wreckage from a flying saucer. So
Amazing.
Arnold had enough. He's like, okay, that's it for me. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it. But what's really cool about this story is that Arnold wrote about it for the first issue of Fate magazine, close to the event. And then he and Palmer put out a book called The Coming of the Saucers in 1956. This account is in there as well, much more heavily edited by Palmer and edited by Palmer in the first issue. But what's really cool is you got a complete FBI file on this, which you can find at the FBI Vault. And I think FBI.vault.gov.
Amazing.
And you can read all this. It's all right there. So you compare the FBI file with both stories, and there are discrepancies throughout. And what's interesting is you can see Palmer kind of throwing in some of the shaver mystery. Like at one point, Arnold, on his way back, has to stop and refuel, and then he takes off and the plane drops.
Yeah.
And like he was out of fuel, and he wrecked his landing gear and had to get the plane repaired. And in the Coming of the Saucers, it says he checked the petcock on his fuel line and it had been shut off. He said, nobody could have done that but me.
Yeah.
Like he was mind controlled by the Darrows.
Right.
So that kind of points back to Palmer. And also another instance where Arnold goes to Harold Dahl's house and it's abandoned, like he had never been there.
Right.
So these two things kind of point to Palmer, as a creative editor.
Right. So Palmer likely made some of the more salacious things up.
Yeah. But
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, and what was really cool, the FBI file. There's I think a testimony from a stringer reporter, like a freelance reporter in the area, had gone to interview Dahl and described Dahl's wife as being absolutely furious and screaming at Harold to come clean and stop the nonsense, God damn it.
Oh, no way.
and says, I tried to contact Arnold. Arnold was also writing for, I think his local paper wanted an article as well. And he said, I contacted a local paper and I just said, these people are nuts. There's nothing to this story. And I forget where I got it. I couldn't include it in the book because I found it once and then I couldn't find the source. Mm-hmm. But I heard that his Dahl's wife was actually brandishing a knife at the time when she was screaming.
Who can blame her?
So, that was Palmer kind of laid low. Arnold kind of laid low after that.
Yeah.
But what's really, he continued on. He was still interested in UFOs, and he got the idea that they were biological.
Yeah.
Much like I always forget the name. It's a photographer, a guy who took some pictures in infrared and claimed there were these big sky creatures.
Right. I can't remember who you're talking about, but and that's actually an interesting kind of a hip take for the 1940s too.
Very much so. And what's really cool is Arnold moved to Australia, and he and Palmer, I think it's the only movie footage of Palmer in this book, documentary, UFOs Are Here, shot by Stan Deo in Australia. So Arnold actually shows up in the video in the 1970s. And he says, really? It's crazy. We've been investigating it for this many years, and nobody, admits there's anything to this. I think that's crazier than the idea that there are things from outer space, whatever. So anyway, but what's really, really interesting is Palmer, it seems like this kind of huckster, cagey publisher, and all that.
P.T. Barnum type, yeah.
But he is a super complex character.
Yeah.
I just talked to Dean Bergstrom,
Yeah, I had him on my
And
show. Yeah, Dean's
yeah,
really doing the great work on Ray Palmer, and I mean, we love Dean here.
yes. So, um, but yeah, as I was writing the book, I read the Man from Mars, and I also uh, get a hold of Richard Toronto's work. Uh, Toronto was like the last of the Shaver fans, huge.
Mm-hmm.
And what I picked up about Palmer was this like real little guy. He was like 4 feet something, had a hunchback because as a child, and typical of Palmer's life, there are two stories. One, he got his foot caught in a milk truck and was twisted around. I forget what the other story is, but in any case, his back got broken
Yeah.
as a child, and he actually got one of I think, the very first spinal graft in America. So in
Oh God.
in 1920s, I believe. So you can imagine how gnarly that must have been.
Yeah.
And it got infected. He almost died. He promised his mother he wouldn't. And he actually had a little autobiography and he, in his autobiography, I say little because it's obscure. He wrote that he focused on his spine and, imagine seeing it heal. And everybody said he would die, and he didn't. And so that kind of puts him into kind of a mystical realm. He was also a real big fan of this kind of modern Bible called the Oahspe. I think it's Oahspe.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the way I saw Palmer is that his line of where reality and fantasy really were, that line is movable.
Yeah.
And he also believed a lot in that dreams and reality were, dreams were a reality.
Right.
His
Just another
belief
reality.
system
Yeah.
was super complex.
Yeah.
But what Dean lives in Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
and not far from where Shaver and Palmer had farms, and he found out that they literally bought these farms at the same time.
Yeah.
So their relationship was that close.
Yeah. They're like
And
life partners.
Yeah, and the fact that well, that's a little.
Yeah. I mean,
They were both married.
Yeah. But I mean, God, it's
buddies.
It's
dudes.
buddies where I'm gonna move to a adjacent farm.
Yeah, but I mean, it's really close, and because the fact that Palmer gave this tortured soul a place, a life essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time, it's interesting is that Shaver was tortured psychically and Palmer was tortured physically.
Right.
And I bet there's some kind of, simpatico between them with that.
Yeah.
And, Shaver gave Palmer a life and Palmer gave Shaver a life. It's a really, really fascinating story. So but, the reason Palmer had to be in there really is that Keel said this of him, and you can really see it. He called him the man who invented flying saucers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really weird. You have this Shaver mystery that just reflects the saucer mystery almost completely. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's a wildly important figure. I mean, we may not be talking today had it not been for him. I feel like the UFO heads out there know that of Palmer's contribution, but like he really was an immensely important figure. Especially for jumpstarting the craze of the saucer craze.
And the other thing about Chrisman.
Yeah.
Chrisman goes on to show up in the JFK file.
Yep, the Warren Commission. His name was on the Warren Commission as being one of the three tramps, right?
Well, not only that, Jim Garrison.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Oliver Stone's movie was really based on the Jim Garrison trial.
Yeah.
In New Orleans, and Jim Garrison was the guy running it for Clay Shaw. And Jim Garrison got this letter from an anonymous source
Yep.
saying, Fred Chrisman was the guy that Clay Shaw would always call when he was in trouble. You should probably talk to Fred Chrisman. So Fred Chrisman gets subpoenaed, and if you get the transcript of the Clay Shaw trial, there's Fred Chrisman.
Like, I would love to. I mean, I wonder if there's a researcher out there who has more info, because, like, we know that, that little thing that he was fingered as someone involved in the JFK assassination. But I would love to know the machinations of, like, and was he really friends with Clay Shaw? Like, is this real? Like, because Clay Shaw was into some very, like, clandestine, sketchy activity. Chrisman, there needs to be a book about Chrisman.
Yeah, Chrisman was a really big right-wing guy in Tacoma. And he had a radio show, et cetera, et cetera. But if you read about him and his character and what other people have to say about him, it's kind of a, angry little man kind of thing.
Yeah.
And who wanted to be bigger than he was. And that's why, I speculate that he liked to put himself in the middle of these mysteries to be bigger than he was. And, and the mythos that has grown up around him is...
He sure has, that,
he was deep state connected and was flown off to Alaska to escape the Maury Island mystery.
Right.
Like, he was just this angry little man up in Tacoma, Washington.
Oh, there's a great story about him where he was like, I don't know, he was like a teacher at a school. Like, I think this might be after Maury Island, up in the Pacific Northwest. And he got fired because he started a right-wing student government. Yes, that's right. He was trying to raise little fascists,
Come on, kids.
Like, when I say I love characters like that, I'm not talking about I love the man, but I love, like, the narratives and, like, the cinematic qualities, and that's what I think. One thing I loved about your book is it celebrates the cinematic qualities of these kind of, like, marginal fringe characters who dedicate a lot of their life to this stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, Barker, the caution people, I love his. What's really funny is his book. They knew too much about flying saucers.
It's a great book.
Yeah, when did that come out? Was that 52, 56?
Oh, yeah, I think more late 50s if I'm remembering correctly.
I think 56 probably. But what that's really funny is when I went back, I went to reread it, and I went, wait a minute, this reads a lot like my book. I realized a lot of the early history, that's a really important book because it's historical.
Totally.
And Barker at his best.
Yeah.
And, he gets a little, pie in the sky with the Bender mystery. But on the way up, I mean, it's a really good factual account of the Flatwoods mystery.
Yes.
Much better than Sanderson's.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's just way more in depth, yeah.
Yeah. And it's him at his best as an investigator, but not to mention he has all these historic cases. Like a really cool one of a guy, I think at a mining operation, claimed he encountered a creature with 6 arms and 6 legs.
Oh.
And I'm like reading this and Barker, get the F out of here, Barker. Yeah. And sure enough, I found the article. There was a real newspaper article talking about, and it's the same story. If he says he saw it, he saw it. This guy's so straight up. He's no nonsense kind of, the typical story that you see over and over again. It's a really good slice of UFO history back in the day. Not to mention he found himself in the middle of the Bender mystery, as did Jim Moseley. And Jim Moseley's story. I mean, anybody, if you buy any UFO book or flying saucer book, you gotta buy Confessions of a Grave Robbing Ufologist. Jim Moseley. Oh my God. It's shockingly close to the truth.
Yes, it's such a great book.
Because Jim Moseley was a 20-something punk who dropped out of Harvard. And
rich
got
kid.
bored of skirt chasing and recreational drinking, in his own words, and started going adventuring in Peru, which is where the grave robbing thing comes from. And so he would, dig up dig up areas and
Yeah.
find artifacts,
Yeah.
quote unquote, and send them back to the States illegally. But not to mention, afterwards, he got involved with this adventurer writer named Ken Crippine, I believe his name was, and he Crippine, because Mosley was a trust fund kid,
Mm-hmm.
and Crippine basically found himself a bank machine and a chauffeur, and Mosley caught onto it and said, "You know what?" Because they were scheduled to do a trip together, and Mosley would be paying a certain amount, and Mosley said, "You know what, Ken? When we go on this little trip, my way is paid, okay?" And they agreed, but he said, "By the way, we should write a book together."
Yeah.
And he said it was probably his idea that it be about flying saucers because he had just become interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And like the James Mantell case was a big one for him. That really, he mentions that as like a real turning point for him.
Right.
And so, on the basis that he's writing a book, well, the first thing he does is he gets involved with these guys. He lives in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Well, some of Bender's guys, Albert K. Bender started the very first international UFO organization, real close to the time that the Area Phenomena Research Association started, Jim and Coral Lorenzen. But he was the first to go international. And it was the International Flying Saucer Bureau, which is going to be the name of my next band. God damn it. But he, this is where the whole Men in Black thing comes from. He said Mosley hooked up with guys who were members of the International Flying Saucer Bureau, Dominic Lucchesi and August Roberts. I think August T. Roberts.
Yeah.
And Augie got famous for taking a picture of a UFO that got published in the paper. And they were members of the International Flying Saucer Bureau. Bender was based in Connecticut, Bridgeport. And right when Mosley was hooking up with them, like Lucchesi said, "Hey, you got to read the books of Charles Fort." Okay, so Mosley reads the books of Charles Fort. And right as he's, hooking up with these guys, Bender tells his entire membership he's shutting down the Bureau because he was visited by three men in black suits and Homburg hats had told him, you got to stop this flying saucer thing.
Yeah.
And he actually claimed that they told him the answer to the mystery. And so he shut down the Bureau, and he was putting out this magazine called Space Review. You can find that online at Archives for the Unexplained, Sweden, files.afu.se. And the very last issues of Space Review for the subscribers are all about space, no flying saucers at all.
Right.
And so Mosley just dives right in and tries to get to the bottom of the Bender mystery, and he's pretty much convinced because Bender's kind of a scrolly little guy. You hear his voice.
Yeah.
"I never got any money from you." Aaron Goliath uses that clip of a speech by Bender to the Detroit Flying Saucer Bureau or whatever organization. He sent a tape along, and but anyway, Bender seems just like this scurry little guy, and Mosley seemed to think so too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And said, I think it got too big for him too fast, and he wanted out, and this was a really cool way to go out. And people are still talking about the Bender mystery.
They are, yeah. I mean, like, I will admit, I love the story. I love it so much. Like, there's no way to verify any of it, but like the story is great, and at the end of the day, that's what
especially
matters.
the book he put out later in the 60s. I
Yes!
think it's 61. Gray Barker, Saucerian Press, put out Flying Saucers and the Three Men
Yeah,
with a little editing from Barker.
yeah.
He talks about being lubed up by some space maidens with some antiseptic gel before he went up into the
Right.
spaceship. And he said he describes himself as being stiff as a board.
Well,
No part of my body was spared. I moved up naked.
and what I love about the Albert K. Bender story is that it's also got like a lot of like undercurrent of the occult, and like it's weird, you know. The whole thing is like, it's a weird story. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
But you know, so anyway, what's awesome about Mosley is he managed to talk to everybody who was anybody in UFO world.
Yeah.
On this 20-something, trust fund punk of a kid who just said he was writing a book. He never did. The only thing that ever came out was I think his book came out in 2006. Okay,
Right.
so this is maybe 52. When he traveled the entire country and talked to everybody. He talked to George Adamski. I think he talked to George Hunt Williamson. I'm not sure, but he talked to Adamski's associates. He talked to Ruppelt and Al Chop together, which nobody had done. He talked to just everybody,
Yeah.
including Bender, and he even hooked up with Silas M. Newton. I think it's Silas M. I want to say Silas P. I think it sounds better. Silas P. Newton from the Aztec crash, who was basically running an oil swindling operation based on the fact that his name was mentioned in Behind the Flying Saucers by Frank Scully as being part of the privy to the wreckage of the Aztec crash, and saying, I used some of that tech from the flying saucer to make this oil finding thing. Want to buy an oil lease?
Yeah.
And he actually got busted for it.
God, it's so great.
Mostly talked to him in the midst of his trial up in Colorado. But it's just fascinating. Mosley just talked to everybody, but it's all in that book.
Well, he kind of started like with all the different incarnations of his like newsletter, which kind of ended. The last title was Saucer Smear, but like a lot of it, like from what I understand, and when I've gone back and read some of the old issues, like it was kind of
read Nexus. Have you read Nexus? It's got these horrible covers drawn by Dominic Lucchesi. Yeah. It looks like a schoolboy,
right,
sitting at his desk, and the teacher, hide it from the teacher. That's
so
what the
great.
Covers look like. They're awesome.
I love it. I love it.
And the organization that Mosley and them started was called Saucer. So it's mostly Roberts and Lucchesi, and they called it Saucers before they came up with the acronym before they had the words for it.
It's so
and
great.
They decided later that, it should stand for Saucers and Celestial Events Research Society.
Yeah.
That's what Saucer stands for.
Pretty good. Pretty good. I got a hand to him. Hats off. What I love about Saucer Smear, though, is that it's more of a gossip rag.
Right. It's the same thing. Like you say, my book talks about the characters. That's what Mosley did.
Yeah,
Mosley
exactly.
was into the characters.
Well, you're carrying on a wonderful tradition. I want to. Gosh, I actually have a lot of chapters here, but we're going to run out of time. Would you rather talk about the chapter French Hairy Dwarves in What's It or Socorro?
Oh, Socorro's been done to death.
I think so too, but let's do French Hairy
wrote
Dwarves.
I wrote a memorial for what's really. I'll say this about Socorro. What's cool about Socorro is that Ray Sanford, who just died, was like one of the first guys on the first private investigator. Sorry, one of the first. I think he was just before APRO. But I
thought he was first. That was, at least he said he was. Yeah.
Him and it was him and Hynek. But I wrote about it. I should know, but I think but APRO definitely got in there really quick. But Sanford was there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ray. He just died. Is
Yeah.
it Stanford or Sanford? Sanford, right?
Stanford.
Yeah. But anyway, I just wrote but he was there. And what's really cool is that Hynek was sent down by the Air Force. He got a flat and had to hitchhike his way to Socorro. Kevin Randall actually wrote about that. But not only that, he's thinking he wants some soil samples. He didn't even have any vials. And Sanford, well, I have some vials. And, he's just a young kid. You see the pictures. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was I have a place in my heart for him because
Me too.
when I was first writing for Martin, he called me to task because he was a regular caller of Martin's show, and he would show up when Martin couldn't get another guest. He was like an emergency replacement, and I wrote this piece about Westall 66,
Mm-hmm.
the Westall incident, and saucer nests. I mentioned the saucer nests that were found there, and I put up a picture of a saucer nest. Charles, just want to let you know there were no pictures taken of saucer nests at Westall during the time. They were only described. I just think you should be very careful about putting up pictures. I was like, okay, yes, sir. And it was like, he kept me straight. Like after that, I was like, okay, I better be careful when I'm writing here because people are looking.
Yeah.
But God bless him, and he was like an original contactee.
Yep.
Back in the day, him and his brother, and he was in all kinds of awesome, wacky, weird shit.
Channeling, he had that mythical footage that was supposedly like the smoking gun UFO footage. That actually, when Greg Bishop went out to go visit him, by that time it was like disintegrated. He had never transferred it. Yeah,
because I was in touch with Chris Lambert.
Yeah.
Who said he actually saw the stuff and wrote X Descending.
Right.
Lambright? It's Chris Lambright.
Yeah. Chris Lambert.
Yeah. And, I wrote a piece about it, and he contacted me, and then I talked to him, and he gave me permission to actually, he sent me a copy of his book, and blah, 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 blah. And I wrote a piece about it, because what's really interesting is that a big part of X Descending was Benowitz actually had footage, and everybody kind of forgets that in the midst of the Doty thing.
Right.
And so he compares the Benowitz footage to the footage of Sanford, and he has an illustration of Sanford's film. And but it was really weird is that a research scientist developed some kind of technology, and it looks real similar to the footage, the mystical footage, and God knows where that is, right? Oh, you said it disintegrated.
I think it's like unwatchable at this point.
But anyway, you know what I would like to talk about?
Please. Feel free.
One of my where is it? Overt contact.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a really weird one. All of a sudden, saucers were zapping and burning people.
Uh-huh.
And
in what era? Was it 50s?
The 60s.
60s.
I think it. Yeah. Yeah, I got it now. There it is. Yeah. Like there's this awesome case. This was actually investigated by David Marler fairly recently. David Marler has the QFOS, APRO, and NICAP archives out in Rio Rancho, New Mexico.
I want to go so bad.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, you've been? You've been?
I did. Well, I was out there. I was living there during COVID. Obviously, you don't want to be in Queens in 2020.
Yeah.
Luckily,
I left LA during that era too.
Yeah, exactly. So my father had a place out in Magdalena, New Mexico, and if you Google Magdalena, New Mexico, it's where you want to be during a pandemic because it's this little dot surrounded by nothing.
Yeah.
Socorro. It's right up the street from Socorro.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, right up the street in New Mexico terms, like 27 miles away.
Yeah.
And So, and it's also where Lonnie Zamora grew up, and I talked to people who knew him. It was so
That's
cool.
rad. Oh, cool.
Yeah, so Martin hooked me up with David, and as soon as the vaccines came out and got the all clear, I was the first guy invited into his archives, because he actually called me the most incredible researcher in New Mexico, which is not a very high bar because all I hear is out there as well. But yeah, he invited me, and we got along really well. He's a big fan of. Well, I mean, he ran the UFO news clipping service for a bit. He edited it, and he's a big fan. And I love newspaper articles; they're amazing.
Yep.
And you don't get them anymore, which really sucks.
Yeah. Or if you do, it's about disclosure and like government stuff, which sucks and it's boring.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, he investigated this case, and by the way, he's got a new facility. So just look up David Marler, and I always UFO Historical Research Center, I believe is what it's called. But anyway, the Rio Rancho school system gave him a couple of buildings to house his archives, get him out of his modified garage, and it's really a great facility. It's kind of a proof of concept kind of thing, so he can get a bigger place. But it's amazing. I mean, he's got Stephen Mikulic's glove from the Falcon Lake incident, the molded glove, and the T-shirt.
So incredible.
And not to mention all the APRO freaking files, which were in private hands forever.
Yeah. And
he got them. And like the first thing I did there was I went into the Cash Landrum thing, and which is awesome because it involves Doty and Moore, and a lot of there was a lot of infighting between APRO and MUFON and CUFOS about the Cash Landrum thing, because APRO thought they had the answer because Richard Doty basically fed Bill Moore the information that it was a secret government craft.
Yeah. Amazing.
And, we got the inside scoop.
Yeah.
And you guys are, and then the APRO accused MUFON and CUFOS of being of covering up and working for the government. So, that's the first thing I pulled and was able to read, and it was really cool because there was this, he's got volunteers, and his young kid was there, and I said, and I'm pulling this story out of this raw, data, basically.
Yeah.
And that's what's so cool about this stuff is you go to the archives and you've just got a bunch of letters and a bunch of reports and a bunch of data, and you get this, you just pull the story out of it.
Yeah.
And it's real. It's like, this is there. And here you go, kid.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, this kid's just going, I am opening my mouth and opening my eyes real big for those who aren't looking at video. But this kid was just wrapped. It was really cool. But anyway, he investigated this case right around the time of Socorro, June 2nd, 1964. Socorro was April 24th. And an 8-year-old boy named Charles was playing in a lot behind his grandmother's laundromat in Hobbs, New Mexico. And he saw this black top-shaped object. He said it was about half as tall as he was at the time. And he got the idea that it knew he was there. So he moved to the left, it moved to the left, he moved to the right, it moved to the right, he moved to the right, left, it moved to the left again. And all of a sudden, it shot right towards him. And he braced himself because he thought it was just going to kill him. And instead, it hovered right over his head and shot flames down over his head as his grandmother watched in horror. And he ran in with his head on fire. And fortunately, a nurse was doing her laundry there. She helped put out the fire. His grandfather pulled up and drove him to the hospital. And in the hospital, they couldn't figure out what the burns were. His face swelled up so bad his nose almost disappeared. He complained of a loss of hearing, I think in his left ear, but he said he had no pain other than itching. He was itching so bad that his his mother and his grandmother had to take shifts to keep him from scratching himself bloody. But this made the papers, so there are a lot of newspaper articles about this. And through the whole recovery process, what the hell happened to this kid? The FBI got involved, and investigating. Hey kid, were you lighting matches?
Right.
And no. And what's really cool is James McDonald investigated the case, and James McDonald shows up in the book. He's basically the guy that turned Hynek around, really took Hynek to task because McDonald was an atmospheric physicist. That's a whole other story. I don't want to go into it. But he's the guy who has the tapes of Charles and his grandmother and his mother talking about this whole incident.
Incredible.
And so it's really weird. So David, the course of his business, he travels around. He was in Hobbs. He said, you know what? I wonder if this guy's still here. 1964, he's probably still alive. And sure enough, he finds him. He shows up at his doorstep. He says, excuse me, sir, are you the Charles Hobbs who blah, 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 blah? And he said, why, yes, I am. And apparently he hadn't even told his wife. And he was running a business. And he stuck to the story.
Really? I had no idea. This is amazing.
Yeah, so it's like one of those really credible stories. With this is my thing. I brought up this up again and again and again. Is that you've got all these cases like this with medical effects. Val Johnson, for instance, the guy who close to your neck of the woods, I guess. He's the cop who had the thing come out and hit his car.
Yeah, Minnesota. Yeah.
Minnesota.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, close enough though. I mean, like we have Herbert Sherman.
I'm a New Yorker, right? Everything on the other side of the Hudson River.
But it's not that far. It's not that far.
Area.
It really isn't that far. I mean, it's Midwest.
Yeah. So yeah, he but the crazy thing is there are other stories around the same era. And like NICAP put out, in the UFO Investigator, put out an article called Overt Contact, which is where I got the title for the chapter called Overt Contact. So there were all these zappings and burnings, but the most awesome one, I'll type in his, what's his name? Flynn. Yes, I got it. Okay. Is the case of James Flynn. Okay, so this is the guy. He's a 45-year-old rancher in Fort Myers, Florida. And when is it? In 1965, yeah. So 1965, March 17th, he walks into an ophthalmologist's office, and his eyes are swollen. Bada bing.
Mm-hmm.
One eye, his right eye looked like a bloody marble. And his wife was called. He was taken to Lee Memorial Hospital, and he stayed there for 5 days. So APRO investigated this, and NICAP did as well. And according to the report, Friday, March 12th, Flynn set out for the Everglades on a hunting trip. A multiple-day hunting trip, so in a swamp buggy with 3 dogs and 4 dogs. Okay, so this is the prospect of spending 4 days alone, with only your dogs and a swamp buggy in the freaking Everglades.
It's a wonderful setting. Yeah,
a special breed of guy too. So he's out there. And his dogs took off. He went running for him. And as he's going after him, in his swamp buggy, he sees this bright light above some cypress trees about a mile away. He said it moved back and forth and then descended, remained hovering about 4 feet off the ground. He got out his binoculars. And when he was about a quarter of a mile away, he turned off the lights of the buggy and got a good look at what he could perceive was a craft of some kind. He said it was a cone-shaped object with a rounded top. He estimated it to be about 30 feet tall based on the cypress trees around it, twice as wide at the base, and it seemed to be made of pieces of metal, 4 feet by 4 feet, held together by rivets. And there were 4 rows of 2 feet by 2 feet windows near the top, with a yellowish light coming through them, and an orange-red glow was underneath. He said he watched it for about a half hour. Started the buggy, got closer. He got to a few feet of it. He got to within a few yards of it, the lit area. Turned off the motor and the lights. He said the dog was distressed and began tearing at the cage. He walked up to the edge of the light and he waved. Hey, how you guys doing? Got no response. Walked a couple of yards further, waved again, and he said a short beam of light shot out from below the windows, hit him in the forehead, and knocked him unconscious. He came to around 24 hours later, and he had no idea it was 24 hours later. This comes out later. He said the dog had nearly destroyed the cage. He saw marks around the buggy indicating it caught around it. There was a circle of burnt ground above where the object had been, and the tops of the cypress trees were burned as well. So he managed to get back to Fort Myers. He was blind in one eye and had blurred vision in his left, and it took him until 4 p.m. on Wednesday to arrive. And when he got to the doctor's office, he realized it was 24 hours later than he thought it was. So the doctor was Dr. Stipe. He had known him for 25 years and wrote in a letter to APRO that he considered Flynn to be a reliable, emotionally stable individual. And Stipe actually went to the site, and he confirmed in the letter that there was a burnt circular area. And he added that there were scrape marks on 2 trees that were as if a heavy object in a straight line had slid down the trees about 2 feet and there stopped. And he included a medical report to APRO as well. So here's one where they got one. Okay, so it said he experienced no mental confusion or hallucination. There was hemorrhaging into the interior part of his right eye. Above and medial to that eye was a thickening and slightly abraded depressed center around a centimeter in diameter. Bruising above the right eyelid. He was physically fit, but some of his reflexes were absent. There was an absence of deep reflexes in the biceps, triceps, patellas, Achilles, abdominals, and plantars, and all of his reflexes except those of his abdominals returned gradually within a week. And then on the 4th day, he complained about numbness in his arms, hearing loss. They cleared up. He still had blurred vision in his right eyes. His abdominal reflexes were absent, and the depression over the right eye was still prominent. So Lorenz's wrote a book. Nightcap wrote a story. He was vouched for by a local sheriff and a lot of other people. And it's like, the same old thing.
Yeah.
Oh, if he said it happened, it happened.
Yeah, he would never lie. Yeah. Well, that's it. I have not heard that case. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And and there are, throughout the literature, there are a lot of cases where people get messed up.
Hurt by UFOs. Yeah. I mean,
especially in South America.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah, you could do a whole episode on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Charles, this has been so much fun. I would like to ask you one question in closing, my friend.
Okay.
What in the hell, if anything, have we learned since 1945 about the UFO phenomenon?
I'm sorry, it's taking
so long. It's a tough question. I'm not sure how I'd answer it either.
I think we've learned that. Well, this is talking weird. No, yeah. This is Cy Strange's.
Trust me, we love weird here.
It's highly strange.
Yes, exactly.
And that every time I as far as what we've learned.
Yeah.
Okay, I think UFO world. The only way I can gauge what we've learned in terms of the subculture that still exists.
Yeah.
Because it definitely is a subculture, and people
Uh-huh.
forget that when
Yeah.
everybody gets flipped out about what people are posting on UFO Twitter and Reddit and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, you know what? We're still a small group of nerds, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
You're so right.
Like literally, I did an experiment. A friend of mine lived, a lot of his family's up in Pine Ridge,
Oh,
New
sure.
York, infamous hotspot along with the Hudson Valley in general. But well, it's not in the Hudson Valley, but anyway, and he talked about a great story. He talked about his wife and his in-laws saw a saucer, saw a craft, UFO, and while they're driving, watched it for a while, and seemed to be following them, and then went off, and then went back to their house, hovering over their house.
Whoa.
And that's a common New York story, a really
Yeah.
common New York story. And he told me this. I'm like, wow. So, and he's also told me about a story of a friend who went missing, kind of an abduction kind of thing. And so this guy has that kind of interest. He checks out UFO Reddit, checks out UFO Twitter. So I said, hey, Ilya, who's Lou Elizondo?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Who is he?
Oh,
And I'm like, oh, there you go.
yeah.
So, you know, you don't even know who Lou Elizondo is. You
Right.
don't know who To the Stars Academy is. You don't know any of this UFO. And, you know, I have other coworkers who, you know, I have a real, you know, a Trump guy who we love to bat back and forth about conspiracy theories. And I'm
Right,
always
right.
like, what's your source? What's your
Yeah.
source? What's your source?
I heard it from a dude.
Yeah. And, you know, we get along. We actually
Yeah.
really get along. And, you know, he comes up and he says, you know what? Congress just said UFOs are real, but nobody seems to effing care. What's up with that? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So we're a subculture. The
Uh-huh.
people who actually care about this are a freaking subculture.
Yeah.
So in terms of what we've learned, you know, I think the best place you can get it nowadays, because we don't have the zines anymore, but we do have the podcasts.
Yeah. Yep.
And, you know, I miss you, Soraya, over at Where Did the Rogue Go?
Yeah, he's great.
I understand some issues are going on there,
Oh.
but he hasn't posted in a long time.
Oh, shit. I hope he's okay.
I
He
think
posted a
is.
show like a couple weeks ago, didn't he?
Yeah, but it was from way back when.
Oh, shoot.
But anyway, I don't I don't want to get into gossip.
No.
But
I love Soraya.
Yeah, and it's like, for instance, that is like Paranormal Salon,
Mm-hmm.
which
It is.
effing wonderful.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it, like what we're doing here. You know,
Yeah.
just this kind of freeform kind of thing,
Yes.
and it's all over the place. There are a lot of good places like this that aren't commercialized, and so we're still a subculture. And what we have learned in terms of this, I think you get where I'm going.
I
with
do.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's people who manage to stay neutral enough, say we're not going to be nuts and bolts, we're not going to be ultra terrestrial,
Right.
we're just going to enjoy the weird.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think what we're seeing is that it's super complex.
Uh-huh.
It seems to reflect we'll call it the phenomena. It seems to reflect what we expect of it. You go back to like the ideas of Keel. It seems to be a consciousness that coexists with us.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to the ideas of Valet. It seems to have some things with fairy folk, which
Yep.
was expounded upon by Cutchin,
Yep.
Joshua Cutchin. And, you know, I'm a huge fan of Stan Gordon.
Yeah, me too,
So
big
there
time.
seems to be a little Bigfoot in there as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
As
like,
a
it's
child of the '70s, Bigfoot was as big as UFOs for me back
absolutely,
then.
absolutely.
And but you know, yeah. So what have we learned? I think we've learned that it's it seems to it's a lot of seems to's.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but it seems to reflect what we expect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely something strange and real going on.
Uh-huh.
That's what I've learned.
Yeah,
And I'll stick to that.
yeah.
Because I've had paranormal experiences myself, and
Right.
and it also there aren't definite lines, but so I think we've learned it's I think we've learned it's real, but
It's weirder than flying saucer from outer space, maybe.
more than a few of us have
Yeah.
come to accept, we'll probably never really know the answer.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
I get you. I get you. You're a kindred spirit, my friend.
That was a tough question, you bastard.
Well, it's an impossible question. Like what I mean, like I think what we've
Exactly.
learned is that we've learned to ask better questions, and I think we have more interesting thought experiments. And I think once like we kind of accepted that like, maybe it is nuts and bolts, maybe it is aliens from another planet. However, there's no evidence for that, and it could also be this, and all those theories are probably wrong. and once you accept that we're probably never gonna ever
Well,
know.
it's
No.
a perfect Zen koan.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just absolutely perfect for that.
Yeah.
Here's a question you'll never have an answer for.
yeah, and
Go to it.
I've stopped.
Ponder it.
Yeah, and as a kid, I was obsessed with the answer, and now I'm obsessed with the stories and the mystery of it all. I think the mystery is
Yeah,
beautiful.
and that's why I love writing it. From with the discipline of an historian.
Yeah,
You know,
yep,
and because and a journalist.
Yeah.
It's so much more fascinating to get to the raw bones of a story.
Yeah.
And as close to the event in the historical record as you can, and to pull the story out of there.
Yep.
As opposed to the story distilled from some guy who wants to sell a whole bunch of books.
right.
And you look at it and it's like, what?
Yeah,
The 80s, Highway 87 was shut down by thousands of New Yorkers looking at, football field sized triangular UFOs.
right.
And this isn't a police report?
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
It's so much more fascinating
I
to
agree.
do it that way.
I agree.
And, not to mention, where did the stories come from? The
Mhm.
people who record them.
Yep. Yep.
And, it's, and we don't, they're, I wish there were still zines out there.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
Yeah, well, I do too, but I don't think they're coming back anytime soon. Charles Lear, this has
What?
been so fun, buddy. First off, great to meet you. I'll just say thank you for doing what you're doing because I do feel like documenting and telling the stories of the people is just as important, maybe even more than talking about the actual phenomenon itself. And obviously, you're talking about the phenomenon, but I love the way you put the spotlight on the people because I do think at the end of the day that is what's most important. It's like who these stories are coming from them, and I think highlighting them and giving them their due is so important. So thank you. Please tell us what the name of the book is and where we can find it and where we can find more of you, sir.
well, the best, unfortunately, I'm competing with myself. I put out the second edition of this book because Philip Mantle, Flying Disc Press, put out the first edition,
Mm-hmm.
and he's closing up shop. And so, in order to keep this book out, I had to put out a second edition.
Right.
So, and in any case, if you go to Amazon.com and
Mhm.
type in Charles Lear in the search, the second edition will show up instead of the first edition,
Right.
which you can't buy anymore, along with Crashed Saucers and Malevolent Aliens and Post-Apocalyptic Macbeth and the Girls, for those of you who want to dive into my more bohemian.
It sounds fascinating to me, right up my alley.
It's a lot of fun. I'm going to shut the F up.
No.
Anyway, yes. And also, if you go to podcastufo.com, I write a weekly blog there. As I'm in the midst of the Zanfretta case, I'm fixed.
Oh.
Which is why I was so had the facts at my ready.
Yeah, well, there were some new tidbits in there. I'm excited to read that, man. But Charles, this has been so fun, buddy. Thank you so much.
You too. I really enjoyed hanging out. Dude.
Yeah, man. So great to meet you. You're a kindred spirit. And you folks, you're going to find all those links he just mentioned in the show notes. And I want to tell you all, please enjoy your dinner tonight. Peace, everyone.
Peace out. Cheers.
Why is this not stopping? Uh-oh. Hold on, I'm going to leave and come right back. I have to do it this way. Okay. Okay, let me just stop it. There we go.